Cool TV. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm your host, Charlotte Jones. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public School superintendent, a former world class athlete, conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, longtime civil rights crusader, and an author of 7 books. Creative Insubordination, What Old Men Know, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, The Poet Emperor of Earth, and his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run, plus another upcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. His books are available on Amazon.com or by calling 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy. A recent recipient of the City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year, and a Detroit track is named for him. His email address is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's dr period JOHNTELFORDEDD@aol.com. Dr. Telford also has a show on WCHB AM 1340 that airs on Saturdays at 9:30 in the morning and Mondays at 6:30 in the evening. That's on WCHB AM 1340, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Mondays at 6:30 p.m. And now, without further ado, I present to you that native Detroiter, the one and only Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Charlotte Jones, a.k.a. Char J., author of A Ain't Always for Apple, an erotic adult alphabet book.
Thank you.
My name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky, and there's a new sky dawning on Detroit today. A new sky dawning on Detroit today because we have got James J. Beasley in the station today. James J. Beasley, that fine poet, that fine researcher, probably the best researcher in the state of Michigan, is a researcher. One of the companies he works for, of course, is Quick to Learn, 2 Sigma, that's headed up by Jim Hare, CEO Jim Hare. That great program that hopefully would have saved the Detroit schools from having a reading program that is totally abysmal. But we've got to get back to the drawing board on that. And let me, this is a poetry program, so let me share this poem with you that I'd like to share. It's called The Values of Verse. Verse comes to us by pen or voice. We thus can always take our choice. Let me start again. I didn't do that well. Verse comes to us by pen or voice. We thus can always take our choice. Let me be also sure to mention that verse will gain us righteous vengeance via deft poetic arts that can topple oligarchs. Verse will clearly, plainly lay out what we poets dare to say out, like gentle mewling lambs, no more, but rather with a fearsome roar is from some cacophonic core of lions. And we have a lion in the studio today with me and Char J, a lion in the studio. He's been a lion for justice. He's been a lion for making sure that kids all across the country are appropriately taught to read. And we've got to get his program by hook or by crook. We thought we were pretty close to getting it in there because, I've got to admit too, I didn't just vote for myself for the school board. I lost, by the way. But I also voted for what I thought were the best people, because I wanted 3 people to be on the school board with me who would agree with me, so that we could, get something done, which the current school board has not got done in the 4 years they've been on there. I voted for Lamar Lemons. Believe it or not, I did. I didn't just vote for myself. I voted for Lamar Lemons. I voted for Aaliyah Moore, that dynamic, fiery Aaliyah Moore, who's a parent in the school district. And I also voted for the very capable and knowledgeable Ida Short. Those were the people that I voted for because I wanted to get at least two more on that board along with me and Sherry Gay Danyogo, who's not up for re-election but who's an incumbent on the board, who thinks like us and will vote with us. But I failed. So that means that I've got to find another because I've always, I'm not used to losing, folks. I was an athlete. I ran 206 races, and I won 174 of them. And of those 174 races, some of them were against the best runners in the world, Olympic champions. But I also lost 32 races. And of those 32 races, of course, I was usually second, so I beat 6 other runners in that race. So you had maybe less than a 2% chance of beating me during my running career. Unfortunately, what we're doing here is measured by politics. It's not measured by the unforgiving stopwatch. Stopwatch doesn't lie, but politics always lie, and politicians lie. So go ahead, Char.
None of the people that you were hoping to get on, none of those people made it on the board either.
I was hoping that at least 2 of them would, but it did not happen. I have to say, though, that the board president, whom I think is also going on the board, that's Angelique Peterson Mayberry, had told me on this show, when I had her on the show, that she was not happy with the reading program, because I was reflecting directly on her. And because she's the board president, and they haven't taught the kids appropriately to read with the program they've got. So we've got the master researcher and the most knowledgeable guy, along with Jim Hare, the most knowledgeable guy in the state. He knows how to fix this program. So welcome to the show, James Beasley, and hopefully we can find another door to get in to fix this reading program that the current board has done nothing to fix.
Thank you, Dr. Telford. Grade level reading is life and death matter for black families.
Amen.
4th grade reading is the single best nationwide tool to successfully earning a high school diploma. And this information comes from the Pew Charitable Trust. It says at any point in time, 1/3 of black men without a high school diploma are in prison at any given point in time. We thought we abolished slavery. The only place slavery is still legal,
Institutionalized slavery,
is in the prison system. And when you look at those numbers, we are tasked with saying, where do we stand? Where do we know? Politicians, school board members, and their subordinates like to use terms like accountability. What does accountability mean? Accountability means knowing where you're at any point in time. We've had a school board, which is so-called people elected now, represents us, in place for 6 years. How are we doing? Well, one way we have of knowing is through a nationwide report card called NAEP, which stands for National Assessment of Educational Progress. And it's considered to be the nation's report card. Right. Unfortunately, Detroit, we've had the dubious distinction of being, in the last 3 assessment periods, at the very bottom of the top 26 26 cities in America. And so we were hoping that we could make a change this year.
So how do you hold people accountable? I mean, what's the format for taking them to task to do their job?
Well, I think the first format is to let the people know what the truth is, what the numbers say, because so many of these numbers are covered up by good press. The numbers will speak for themselves. And in education, we have a grading system which predates all of us. If you want to get an A, you have to be in the 90s. You want to get a B, you got to be in the 80s. A C, 70s. A D, you better be mid 60s or better. Now, on a scale, fourth grade reading, Detroit, is testing out at proficient or advanced at a rate of 6%.
Did you hear that, folks? At a rate of 6%. 6%.
I mean, if you looked at the other side of that coin, it's a number of 94% not proficient, off target. Various factors contribute to it, but the bottom line is we're at a 94% non-proficient.
You have a call coming in. There you go.
And there is a caller coming in. Caller, you are on the air. Please identify yourself.
This is Jim here with 2 Sigma Research Group.
Okay, the great Jim Hare has just called in. Jim Hare, for those of you who don't know, is the CEO of Quick to Learn / 2 Sigma. That's one of the programs that James Beasley, who's sitting here beside me, is also affiliated with. What comment do you have, Mr. Hare, regarding what has happened with this election?
Detroit's new school board faces a challenge, possibly the largest education challenge in the nation. All of our schools nationwide are in free fall after the pandemic. Detroit, with the rest of the country, has been extremely damaged with one unique characteristic. Detroit was in free fall before the pandemic because of the deconstruction of education, of public education in Detroit, that was inflicted by the state of Michigan during the takeover. The the school board, as it was put together in 2014, failed to recognize the damage they inherited, and they allowed the past 6 years to be squandered and basically set the district up to what it has become, which is the lowest performing school district in America, in any big city.
So what you're saying is
We have
you're saying it was
we have a catastrophe that must be met.
Okay, Shar has a question.
You're saying it was messed up before pandemic, and then during the pandemic it got worse, and we're still fighting stuff that was bad prior to the pandemic. Everybody wants to blame everything on the pandemic, but what you're saying is it was worse. It was bad before pandemic hit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And the school district, the first school board was made aware of that situation. The incoming superintendent was made aware of that situation. But I'll quote him. He clearly stated, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Beasley, I have no interest in knowing the history of this school district.
Well,
So if you don't know the
Did
history,
I get it right, Mr. Beasley?
that's what we heard. But, that was, once again, to his credit, he was a neophyte coming in. He was trying to look forward.
and who was that?
The superintendent and his staff, this new administration, when we had approached them, they were coming in, and we wanted to let them know.
That's the current
The
superintendent.
current superintendent.
Yeah, Dr. Nikolai Beatty. He's a good man in many ways. He's done some good things, but this reading program, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Maybe now, maybe finally, even though the incumbents have been voted in, I've never been about firing anybody or demoting anybody, but I've always wanted to fix this reading program, as did the people that I voted for. Lamar wants to fix it, Aaliyah wants to fix it, and certainly Ida Short, the competent Dr. Ida Short wants to fix it.
Dr. Hare, One of the best ways to really fix it is just to follow the law. There's a prescription in place. The Every Student Succeeds Act is the prevailing education law. Everyone is familiar with No Child Left Behind.
Right.
Under the Obama-Biden administration, it was replaced by the Every Student Succeeds Act. And it gives us new provisions that we can use exactly for situations like this. It allows you to have public-private partnerships. Excuse me. It allows us to have public-private partnerships. It allows you to have a pay-for-success model, which means you can set contracts up so that you know you will get your guaranteed output when you make your initial investment. We don't have that right now. Everything we will pay for curriculum, we'll pay for direction, and hope we get a result. If you tie the result into the performance, it's like a performance bond, to mitigate risk. And if you do that, you take new approaches. These are the kind of things where creativity comes from. You look at innovation. Innovation looks like something you've never seen before, and we are afraid. We need to embrace it with a opportunity of turning around the 94% of the fourth graders that we're missing right now.
Right.
You know how significant that number is, and all the contributable problem with the not only the prison system but the social system and the cost, the undervaluation of the homes in Detroit, just because we don't have a good education system.
You're watching the Dr. John Telford Detroit Show, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like us, follow us, share us, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. So the accountability has not been held to this board, to the previous board. You say the superintendent. What's the plan? How do we get them to do the things that need to be done?
Well, you heard Mr. Beasley say that we need a program that is a pay only for success program. Right. Now,
but they're not interested in that.
Well,
right?
They better become so. I mean, the quick to learn 2 Sigma program, which actually initially was devised by a Cass Technical High School graduate named Jim Hare, is the answer, and he's on the air right now. So, Jim, talk a little bit more about quick to learn. Are you still there? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Telford. We started this project really as a retirement, something to keep busy during retirement. I was a technical marketing person specializing in the auto industry for many years. Like Mr. Beasley, I started my career at IBM Corporation. He worked for major tech companies. I worked for major tech companies like Intel and others. But when I retired, I wanted to stay involved with something that had a social impact. We initially developed a technology system for schools that was fortunate enough to become the only federally approved program to provide one-to-one technology in low-income school districts across America. We're the only one that ever got approved for 100% federal funding for Title I schools. When we began deploying these systems across the nation, we found that teachers really did not know how to use it, but we weren't educators, so neither did we. But we knew that they needed the technology and possibly to make a difference. So then we shifted our focus to education research. We joined the American Education Research Association, and we surveyed educators across the country to find out what would they want if they had an unlimited budget. What would they want to do with technology? The consensus answer that we got from educators from coast to coast was if we could find a way to improve the performance on standardized testing, that would be a good thing, and specifically reading and math. So we read literally thousands of research papers, and we got lucky. We found the answer, or what we believed to be the answer, hiding in plain sight. in the 1960s, a researcher out of the University of Chicago named Benjamin Bloom, Dr. Benjamin Bloom,
Oh, yeah.
wrote
Yeah. Bloom's
papers defining master learning.
Yeah.
And in his mastery learning research, he developed an algorithm of success. Normal growth for a school district is, in scientific terms, a quarter of a standard deviation of growth in every 180-day school year. Bloom discovered that with mastery learning, you could grow one standard deviation of 4 years of growth in every school year. And this has been out there for 40 years, but it's not easy to implement, so it was largely ignored by educators across the world, really. Bloom revisited that research in the 1980s, and he found that if you added a tutor, like Helen Moore's, Mother Moore's Let's Read program, if you added a personal tutor for every student, you could gain an additional one standard deviation, which is, imagine, Dr. Telford, if our students could have 8 years of normal growth in every school year. That's what 2 Sigma is. And that's what we named the research project. So our goal was to develop a way to produce those types of results in schools like Detroit and get those 2 Sigma numbers. And I'm here to say we actually did that across the nation, and we even did, we exceeded that number dramatically at a Detroit school, Sherrill Elementary.
Now, that's well and fine, but if you have a good program that nobody's using, and that's my issue where I'm not understanding. You have it, but they don't want it. That's what it
Well, let me put it this way. I'm in good company. They didn't use Dr. Bloom's method either, and he was internationally known and is taught in just about every school of education, but they don't do it because it's hard to do. So it's not an easy, education does not change well. They don't embrace innovation, and they would rather fail,
which they're doing,
and continue to fail than try something new, because we do not hold them accountable for outcomes. One of my favorite questions, Shar, is asking this question to educators and to citizens interested. Are the poor outcomes that we get for our students in Detroit, or you could substitute any school district, is that a feature of our education system, or is it a defect? And it's a trick question because there is no wrong answer. I'll repeat that. Are poor outcomes for the students in Detroit a feature of our education system, or are they a defect?
Excuse me 1 second.
What do you think, Shar? Would you answer that question for us?
Jim, excuse me 1 second. There was another caller calling in. I had invited him to call in, but I'm going to hope that he will quit trying to call for a moment, because you're saying something that's very important. And after you've said your piece, I'm going to hope that he's listening to the show and will call in again. So go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Okay, that's all right. So, Shar, I'd ask you that question. As an interested Detroiter, do you think the poor outcomes we have, is our system designed to do this intentionally, making it a feature, or is it a defect something that we need to correct?
It's a defect that needs to be correct. I am not a Detroiter. I was born and raised in Detroit, but I live in the outskirts now, in the suburbs. But that's a defect, and this is my issue. Like I said, you all have good programs. These are good programs, but the school board won't utilize them. That's the thing that we need to fix. And maybe you can't answer this. My question would be, how do we get the good programs into the school systems and make them change? Because I don't understand why they're still doing the same thing.
That's a fair question, but I have someone sitting next to you that's more qualified than I am to answer that question, and it's his role. My job is to get the numbers, do the research, develop the science and the technology and the algorithms.
Okay.
Mr. Beasley, would you answer that question, please?
All right, thank you, thank you. First of all, you have to take a look at how long we've been committed. We've been committed, been working within the Detroit schools since mid 2000s.
Okay.
And so perseverance is one thing. When we initially started out, one of the initial questions was, "Where's your data?"
Okay.
And so we did research all over the country. We have a ton of data now. So the school board has actually accepted, and said we wanted to take a look at the implementation of this as recent as 2016,
Okay.
but they refused to act on it because they wanted to make sure their new incoming superintendent had a chance to weigh in. And he's come in, and we haven't been able to get much traction since. And so when we saw that was the case about 4 years ago, we had actually quit coming to the board meetings.
Okay.
And started to pursue other opportunities because this is indeed a worldwide problem. Detroit is just a ground zero in terms of ineptitude as far as solving it. So but because it's such a great learning ground, we want to take it and to spread it around. But now you have people who have to make a new decision. They have to decide who their loyalties lie to, whether or not the loyalties are to the 94% of our kids who are not reading proficient at the fourth grade, or do they want to outweigh that with political and corporate loyalties? I mean, it's really that serious, because we're all in the same boat, and it's going to affect us one way or another. Even to the degree and extent, the Detroit Chamber of Commerce has in their 2022 State of the Education report, they have goals that they have stated. They want it by the end of the decade. They want to have at least 60% of the students who graduate either to have a post-secondary certificate or degree. That's one goal. And the other thing is to cut the achievement gap in half by 50%. But they also issue a cautionary flag because they feel they're going to miss the goal because of the performance of Detroit public schools. So now, not only is it affecting us locally, but it's affecting the entire region. When we talked about home values, for example, the Brookings Institute has done a survey, and they've discovered that homes in predominantly African American communities are 35% undervalued because of lack of performance of the education system. So think about that. 35% of however real estate you need on, is now hit. It's probably higher in Detroit because our problem is so exacerbated. And so one other thing it makes you think about is in the future, in the past when I was in college up at Eastern Michigan University, very involved, with the Black Student Union, and we would talk about things such as genocide. Say, how do you kill all? I say, it's genocide. How do you kill all 25 million black folks? Well, it's come up with an ingenious plan.
Keep them from reading. Keep them from being able to read.
Yeah, you got the Willie Lynch plan on steroids. So it will create homicide, suicide, and this is the most insidious piece. Now you got ignorance-side. I call it ignorance-side. If you keep them dumb, you don't have to worry about them voting. If you keep them dumb, you don't have to worry about them taking you over. If you keep them dumb, you don't have to worry about them competing. And I'm not saying, there's a certain sector, and we're fighting that now. One of the other things I want to point to is when you look at things such as Detroit, they have a future city project. So what does the future of the city look like if you are prepared to deal with it in an intellectual standpoint, in terms of being able to read, write, compute? That's the future. And I know because of my past experiences, not that I'm so smart, but I had people who led me along the way as I was growing up. You know, so I want everyone to experience what I experienced. And I know how hard it is when you already are prepared. So imagine what life is like when you're not.
Okay. You're watching WJZZ Cool TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If they, did you have an answer?
Yeah,
Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to mention, Jim, do you have any closing remarks? Because there's another gentleman that has asked to come on, and I've told him that he can call in. So, do you have anything else that you would like to say in the next couple of minutes? Are you still there?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay.
All I like to say is this: Detroit, on the ballot, there were a lot of things, but one of the things that was unsaid that's on the ballot, the very survival of public education in Detroit depends on the new board members recognizing and addressing the literacy issue, because our schools do not deserve to survive if their output looks as if they're intentionally miseducating the children of Detroit.
God, I would hate to think that's what's happening, but it's not impossible. Well, okay, Jim, you know, you've been very enlightening, as you always are, and we're going to be talking about this topic a lot more with you. But in the meantime, I have another caller that I have asked to call in at 10:35, and he's going to be calling in right after I make this announcement, because I mustn't forget it.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me. We appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, Jim, and let me say this before I, get in trouble for not doing it. Miss Virginia Starkey, fondly known as V, the proprietress of V's Boutique, offers a wide range of fine clothing and accessories for ladies. You can find all sizes of women's fine apparel in V's one-stop, excellent customer service at V's Boutique that you can't find anywhere else in Detroit. V's is at 16423 East Warren Avenue, right next to the Alger Theater, and around the corner from one of the few libraries that's still open. And to make an appointment with V, you can call 248-662-6622. So call V and patronize her, because she's got the best women's apparel in the city. And we are interviewing right now James Beasley, inarguably the best researcher in the state of Michigan, about a very serious problem that has just arisen because the wrong people got returned to the school board, and I was not one of them. You know, despite my little slogan, I trust all us Detroiters will remember, vote Telford for the school board in November, and that did not happen. I'm expecting in another 3 or 4 minutes another caller to call in. But in the meantime, James, what further commentary do you have on the state of education in the school district of the city of Detroit?
Well, I think we need to take a systematic approach, all hands on deck, in terms of fixing this. I don't think we have the luxury of ruling anything out until we rule everything in and look at what's moving us in the right direction. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in terms of what Two Sigma is too. Two Sigma is just a framework, for which you begin your approach towards implementation, and it rules everything in by following the law. It just has to be research and evidence based, which is what the SLO requires. It gives you the ability to minimize the risk to the taxpayers with a pay for success model. And that way you're paying for what you get, which makes an awful lot. Now, one of the targets that the state has set up, which is in conjunction with the U.S., is a 90% proficiency rate. That's the goal. So at the end of the day, we want 90% of our kids to be able to read proficient or grade level. Right now, we're upside down.
How about 100%?
I'm just talking about what's written in the law.
How about more than 6%?
A lot of like 94%. Man, I mean, we're talking about this, and it almost seems I mean, I can't believe we're having this conversation. I am a product of the Detroit Public Schools when it wasn't a community district. It was plain old Detroit Public Schools. And when I came out of the Detroit Public Schools in January of 1954, I came out with the education that was equivalent to that of a college sophomore. Now, the kids that we are educating today deserve that same education. These same kids in the same city of Detroit that I got, and that you got, Char, and that you got, James. You and I both came. Yeah, go ahead.
These kids are a gift. They're a gift to us from God. And I wrote a piece on that. It says the gift is like an oak tree, hid in the precious acorn small, before the earth can touch it and make it grow so tall. It's like a monumental statue when it's still a hunk of clay. It's like the glow of a golden horizon on the edge of a brand new day. It's like the score of a brand new game. The score is zip to zip. It's like the potential of a new poem before it's delivered off my lip. It's like waking up with a big old smile on your face when it used to be a frown. It's like hearing Dr. Reverend Frederick George Sampson say, you ought to wake up and write it down. It's like walking through a field and finding a perfect four-leaf clover. It's like hearing Aretha Franklin sing, I thank God for how I got over. Oh, I wish I could better describe all the things inside that I see, the joy that I find in my heart, soul, and mind when I discover the person that's me.
You have your second caller. I'm sorry.
Oh, we got our second caller? Okay, I was just going to do a poem, but we've got our second caller. Okay, caller, you're on the air. State your name and what you want to talk about. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Commissioner Willie Burton calling in on the Dr. John Telford show.
And that's Commissioner Willie Burton, who was also he was my manager when I just ran for the school board, and we gave it a hell of a run, didn't we, Willie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were everywhere. In fact, you drove me harder than I drive myself sometimes. I couldn't believe how hard you drove me, and we were everywhere. But we gave it the good fight. So what is your comment now on the outset of the board race?
Well, you first of all, I want to say, Dr. Telford, you ran a great race. You got out there early. You had a lot of energy, a lot of drive, and I was really. You had me smiling. I'm like, man, to see you 86 years old, you out here knocking on doors, shaking hands, and, doing the part, what it takes to get elected. And then you look up, you learn about all of this dark money and special interest groups, Republican money trying to shape this, school board election. And so we just got to call it out for what it is. It's dark money from Lansing coming into Detroit, and trying to shape the local election. It's not right, but I do commend you for getting out there. I commend the whole team that got out there. I commend voters for going out to vote. You had a lot of women going to the polls yesterday for Proposal 3. So you started seeing a lot of voters saying, hey, I'm going out to vote. I'm going to vote on these proposals. I'm going to vote on school board candidates. But, we got to just identify, something was wrong yesterday. You had voters going to the polls to learn that they already had absentee ballots, that they already voted. How can you vote it already absentee? You showing up in person.
Willie, I'm trying to talk to you.
Something just ain't right, and it doesn't pass the smell test.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me, Willie? Yeah. I just wanted to say to you, I wanted to thank you for your good managership, and I also want to thank the 10 people who volunteered their whole day at 10 voting centers and handed out my flyers. This flyer, knock my mic down. That's cool. Well, that puts a top to the whole thing. But this flyer is not anymore. It's a souvenir now. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. But those 10 people that came out and in the cold and did that for the kids. They were doing it for the kids, not just for me, but for the kids. because it's our DPSCD students who are going to suffer unless we get this reading program fixed. So that was a thank you that I wanted to give you, Willie, and also to those 10 people. So continue your commentary.
Wait, I want to say something to what Willie said. Not only did women get out and vote on Proposal 3, every male that I know voted yes on Proposal 3. Take that for what you
Good
want to
for
take
them.
it for. But
Well, I voted yes on all 3 proposals, and I'm a male.
take it how you want to take it. But every male that I know was like, oh no.
You know, that's that's one of the good things about this election. At least we've got control. We've got the governorship. We've got the governorship. We've got the House. We've got the Senate in Michigan now, and hopefully we can do the same thing nationwide. I hope that crazy Herschel Walker doesn't get elected. And but anyway, Willie, I interrupted you to make my thanks to you and to the 10 folks who weathered the cold to come out and hand out my flyers. So, Willie, would you like to comment further?
Sure. I just want to say thank you, for having trust in me and everything. And I just want to thank the team. More importantly, that was hard working and dedicated as well. Number one, I want to thank you for having the energy and the drive to do it, man. I'll take my hat off to you because you're an icon in our community, especially motivating and inspiring our youth to strive towards greatness. And the one way you can do it is by going to school and getting a good education, and that's what you're pushing our children to do, to continue to go to school and be there on time and to get a good education. And you're pushing for the literacy program, and so I know those works. You're going to continue to push those, and I know that they have not seen the last of Dr. John Telford.
Oh, you're right about that. I'm not done with this issue, Billy. Believe me, I'm not done with this issue.
Regardless of what happened in this election, we're still gearing up for 2024.
Okay, well, listen. Thank you, my brother, for calling in. I'm going to ask our guest a few more questions now, and I'll be seeing you very shortly, my brother. We'll be talking. So,
Solidarity.
So thanks you for calling in. Solidarity. We are interviewing James Beasley, best researcher in the state of Michigan, unquestionably, on the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ, the internet TV station, and we've got to keep up the fight. What I'm hoping now, and maybe this is an unrealistic hope, but I'm hoping that perhaps the current superintendent and the newly elected board, most of whom are incumbents who got reelected, will finally see that we have got to put a program in that works. Because to have a program that doesn't work, and they've had it for 4 years, and it doesn't work, and to keep doing that is definitely a form of insanity, as I have said many times. I have told them at board meetings. So we've got James Beasley here to guide us in the right direction.
You said earlier we've got the wrong people back in there. I can't remember what you said exactly. So now I'm wondering, how do we get the wrong people to do the right thing?
If we don't recall them, and I don't think that's going to happen, hopefully now they'll finally realize. I mean, if you look at the scores, this abysmal percentage of 6%. I mean, Jim, what do you think we should do? I mean,
first of all, coming from a business background and a scientific background, we understand that the first step to problem resolution is problem identification. You have to understand the depth of the problem, so you can have to understand the scope of the solution. And a lot of words are being used without true application. One of the words is scalability. People like to use scalability. They don't know what scalability is. The definition of scalability primarily means that as you begin to do work, you may put more work on the front end, but then at some point you'll reach a point of momentum where the back end will yield you greater results without you having to do as much work. Let me give you an example. If you've ever been out in the country and you have to get water out of a well and you have to go to a pump, You start priming, you start pumping the water. You pump and nothing comes out. But the more effort you keep doing, then after when water starts to flow, you don't have to pump anymore because you start to get the kinetic energy all working together.
That's an interesting analogy.
It is.
Do you have another poem, by the way?
Yes.
Let
Yeah.
me do this first. You're watching WJZZ Cool TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV. It's the coolest station in the world.
And James Beasley not only is a fine researcher, he is also a fine poet. And we had a poetry program at the Detroit Yacht Club, whereof I am a member, a few months ago, and he was one of the featured poets on that program, as was I. You know, I featured myself since I was a sponsor of the program. James, you got another poem to share with us?
Yeah, this is really the first one I wrote was inspired by, once again, Dr. Frederick, in the late great Dr. Frederick George Sampson, but it's called Pinnacle. It says life is like a mountain.
Pinnacle, right?
The pinnacle.
Pinnacle, yeah.
Yes, it says life is like a mountain with its lofty peaks and slopes, dreams and goals and thoughts from high. I feel with optimistic hopes. So I stand at the base and I look at the face and I ask God, what shall I do? Well, the answer was plain as he spoke to my heart, soul, and brain. And he says, it's all up to you. He said, with my permissive will, you can climb up that rugged hill and gain your way to the top. So with strong faith in my heart, my climb I did start, knowing that I would not stop. For you see, a challenge awaits the brave soul, the one who dares to climb. When you conquer that difficult mountain, with success you only find that the barriers of your mind are the mountains you must climb. The doubt that fills your heart are the red seas that you must part. The faith that fills your soul is where you must find your gold. He said, your success is in your task. All you have to do is ask. Seek and you shall find solutions to every mountain that you climb. For every mountain that we climb, there's a cross that we all must bear. But that burden seems so light when you know you're in God's care. So when you share your dreams and visions and others seem doubtful and ever so cynical, just remember that spot at the mountain top is the place that's called the Pinnacle.
The Pinnacle by James Beasley. And you know, he's got that, he did that poem by memory. And it's apropos to education, if you think about it for a moment. And here's another poem of mine, which I do not have memorized, but it also is apropos to education. And I call it Zeitgeistian Wishes 3. You know, the zeitgeist is the present time, the zeitgeist of now, you know. Great fate, pray thee, I would you'd free the seer in me. You know, a seer is someone who sees the unseen. Great fate, pray thee, I would you'd free the seer in me, that I may see the wind, and be the rain, and know the starlit snow, because we educators wish that all of our students may someday soon become enabled to see the as yet unseen, and know know the as yet unknown, and also reign their accumulated knowledge that they accumulated from the Detroit Public Schools Community District when we get this reading program hopefully fixed upon the world, so that they can do that. And here's a poem that I did memorize. I did memorize this poem, and it's about education too. I call it my vision. I have a vision in my heart and in my spirit, in my soul, that all the children of Detroit will never have to pay the toll of poverty and ravaged mind or end up dead or on the dole, but will through education find their life-fulfilling future goal. This is what the 2 Sigma Quick to Learn program is all about. So, Detroit Public Schools Community District Board members, Detroit Public Schools Community District Superintendent Nikolai Vitti, give the 2 Sigma Quick to Learn program another chance. Let them make a presentation to you. Let them make a presentation to show you what they have done and how they can do it. You know, they're research based, they're field proven, and they're coming. They're telling you that they will do the program without remuneration if you don't produce success. Have you heard of any other program in the country that makes that offer?
It seems like a no-brainer. You have
Yeah.
something to sum it up?
Yeah, sum it up. Accountability.
Right.
A real quick poem of mine, one of my shortest poems. It says, it goes like this. It says, I asked the Lord to give me a hand. He said, I'll do better than that. I'll give you two. A right one and a left one. Now, what are you going to do?
I like that one.
That comes down to self-accountability. We all have to take a look at that, but it's our job to equip the kids to compete. We aren't doing that. And that's what drives me. I've got mine, but and I know how hard it is. We need to make it easier for our generations. We're letting them down. We're 94% of failure rate from proficiency. These are babies. They can't teach themselves to learn how to read. They depend upon us to do it, and we're failing. We're playing politics. We get these jobs to position ourselves for the next job. What about the kids? Who's going to speak on their behalf?
I will. I'll speak on their behalf. And I'll also share this one last poem. Because believe it or not, there's a relationship between this poem and what we've been talking about. And I call this poem Uncivil Warfare. I wrote it on the 6th of January, 2021. Actually, the day before my poor late wife, Adrian, passed, who was a fine principal in the city of Detroit. The alternative title of this poem is The Turd That Hasn't Flushed. On this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. God yet hasn't pushed the lever on the traitor Trump forever. And when he does, let's hope that it's a lever of the gas chamber, which it probably won't be, but at least let's see that sucker in prison for the rest of his natural thieving, lying existence.
We've got time. I mean, I need to know. That caught me off guard. So, are you guys going before the board again to try to push this program?
We just want to have an open discussion, and I want to differentiate, who I am, from what we're doing. One of the things, I wear multiple hats. First of all, I'm a lifelong citizen of Detroit. I've lived here, trained here.
And a graduate of Detroit Northwestern High School.
Yeah, Northwestern Colt. And now I happen to have affiliation, with multiple minority companies, particularly African American companies, and the resources they have. A lot of brothers on here have a hard time getting a fair shake from Detroit public schools. Historically, if you went past the graveyard of most of the black communities, there's a lot of bodies there, and so we want equity. When we look at things like Detroit Future City, here's one, Detroit Future City, the reinvestment index. We need to be reinvested. When you look at our population, one of the most discouraging things I see is that our population is not being reflected by our leadership.
Right.
Our needs are not being reflected by our leadership. And then we don't speak up, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. So we have to be a dissenting voice. Or else the voices are going to die down because the next generation won't be prepared to keep the struggle up.
Because if they can't read, they can't figure out what needs to be had in order for them to succeed because they can't read.
That's an essence to survival. That's not optional. That's not optional.
So, and I think that is, the future is so it's out there. Things are changing. It's a different world now. And what used to work won't work no more. And then you're not doing half the things that you need to do to prepare them for what needs to be done, because reading is definitely a fundamental thing that's needed. So you've been watching the Dr. John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and co-host Charlotte Jones. Coming to you every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Contact Dr. Telford at 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. or at Dr. John Telford, EDD, at AOL.com. That's DrJohnTelfordEDD at AOL.com. To sponsor or appear on this show or to get signed copies of his book, which Hugh Perkins, Jeffrey Feiger, and Dr. Wayne Dyer all call spellbinding and sensational. It was the late great Dr. Wayne Dyer who said, Dr. John Telford has a warrior's heart and a poet's soul. Read Dr. Telford's commentaries on the schools and other vital topics in the Telford Telescope column in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, and also hear him on his other station, WCHB AM 1340, every Saturday morning at 9:30 and Monday evening at 6:30. That's every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. and Monday evening at 6:30 p.m. on WCHB AM 1340. Tune in next Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock to the John Telford Detroit Show here on WJZZ Cool TV with co-host Charlotte Jones. And thank you for listening.
You got this book?
Yeah.